Welcome to Sound Heal Podcast. I am your host, Natalie Brown, and thanks so much for joining me as we continue to explore the fields of sound healing and sound therapy, and generally using sound for health and wellness. Today we have Kelvin Young as our podcast guest, and he really has an inspiring story. For many years, he was caught in a vicious cycle of drug addiction and struggled with depression, anxiety, and had prison time several times. Within prison, he found freedom from his addiction. Through his drug treatment program, he learned about meditation, sound healing, yoga, and expressive arts. Through these modalities and profound experiences, he found that he was able to let go of traumas, to release emotional distress and pain that were really at the root of his addiction. And through his own self-healing, his own transformation, he is now a community health worker and sound healer. He's also presenting throughout the country at conferences, retreats, colleges, yoga studios, prisons, addiction treatment centers, hospitals, mental health agencies, and other locations to share what he's learned and help as many people as he possibly can. We discuss his background, from the challenges to finding freedom from addiction. We discuss why he thinks sound is so therapeutic and useful for overcoming traumas and addictions, how he sustains his recovery, and how he turned this from self-healing into what he does now, helping others and spreading joy. This episode is sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa, located in Sarasota, Florida, as well as online at theomshop.com. They offer a large array of sound healing and vibrational medicine tools. They put customer service first, and they have so many wonderful offerings, from their large showroom of quartz crystal singing bowls and instruments and tools to the learning center and online sound meditations. They also offer training as well. I'm very lucky to have been there a couple times to offer sound healing workshops and also have some coming up in 2021. So if you're ever near Sarasota, do consider stopping in and visiting them, their luxury spa, and check them online as well at theomshop.com. Thank you so much to the Om Shop and Spa for their sponsorship. Please enjoy this episode with Kelvin Young. Great. Well, thanks again so much for agreeing to do this and making time. I think that a great place to start, just because, we'll be talking a lot about what you do now, but it's important to kind of trace back as far as what, brought all this into your life that you do now. So, if you could just tell us a bit about your background, the progression, and as much as you want to kind of talk about the difficulties that then led you to this wonderful work that you're doing now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Natalie. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show today and to share a little bit about my experience, strength, and hope and recovery and holistic ways to heal with sound. It's been, an integral part of my healing process, and it's an honor to share it with you and everyone that's listening today. Again, my name is Kelvin Young, and I'm a community health worker at InterCommunity HealthCare here in Hartford, Connecticut. I work with people that's coming home from prison and connect them to the different integrated healthcare services we offered here, such as primary care, physical health care, behavioral health, mental health care, and also addiction recovery services as well. And also work in the north end section of Hartford, Connecticut, which is a predominantly Black community. And, part of my work is to help to eliminate some of the racial health disparities within communities of color. And I'm also a certified sound healer, having opportunities to offer community and individual sound healing sessions to people all over the country, which is, it warms my heart. And I met so many different interesting and wonderful, lovely people throughout my practice. But one of the most important things for me that I believe is so important for me to share is that I'm also a person that's in long term recovery, which means I haven't used alcohol or any other drug to deal with my emotional distress since March 6, 2009. And after many years of battling with depression, anxiety, and drug addiction, I found freedom from alcohol, from marijuana, from cocaine, from heroin, and even prescription drugs like Oxycontin, Vicodins, and Percocets. And I began my healing journey in a drug treatment program within prison. And it was within this prison program that I learned about the transformative powers of yoga, meditation, sound healing, even creative expressive arts like poetry and journaling. And Natalie, I had a lot of misconceptions about yoga,
Mm-hmm.
about meditation, sound healing, because to be quite blunt, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me practicing these modalities.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think it was for me. I honestly thought that yoga was for suburban rich white women
Mm-hmm.
because of the way it's marketed and promoted here in the United States. And I thought, you know, sound healing, meditation was for Buddhists and hippies. So I didn't think it was for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I know the things I was doing prior to going to prison, it wasn't working for me no more. So I had to try something new and different. And by stepping out of my comfort zone and utilizing sound healing and meditation and yoga as a vehicle to go within, because I truly do believe that healing begins from within, I was able to find that sense of calmness and inner peace, even being in a very hostile and restrictive environment such as prison. But most importantly, I was able to understand the root causes of my experiences with addiction. And from my lived experience, I learned that it was the unhealed, unprocessed emotional pain that I experienced in my life, the unprocessed trauma that I endured, and the toxic chronic stress was at the root of my addiction. So I was reaching for something outside of myself to find a sense of relief from that distress. And I found it in alcohol and marijuana and cocaine and heroin and prescription drugs. And it worked for a while until it didn't work anymore. And I got caught up in that very vicious cycle of addiction. And that was a powerful, powerful, powerful learning experience for me, and I could sit here today and say I'm grateful for my experiences, with addiction. And I'm even grateful for my experiences of being incarcerated because it wasn't for those experiences, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I won't be offering sound healing to different people all across the country. I want to be working with people, returning citizens that's coming home back into our communities and connecting them to different healthcare services that we offer. And so I'm grateful for those experiences because I learned so much through my journey.
Yeah, I mean, just let's unpack a couple of those things there. I think it took a couple of really pivotal things to make that change. First of all, you had to be in a place that was actually offering those things, so that's pretty
Right.
amazing. And then, of course, your own ability to get out of your comfort zone. I don't think everybody would do that, but you must have been at a point that you really something needed to change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It got to the point, and I was in and out of prison. This was my fourth prison sentence, where I really got to that point where I was, what we call sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I got to that place where I was in and out of prison. My daughter, seeing her father, going back and forth to prison. She seen me very intoxicated on heroin and alcohol and other drugs. She seen me verbally and physically abusive to her mother. She seen me very violent in the streets. So something had to give. And being in that jail cell, I never forget laying on my bunk bed, you know, I got to that point of I surrendered. It wasn't defeat, it was surrendered. I had to surrender to a power that was much greater than myself. And once I was able to do that, you know, and my daughter, she was the inspiration for me to really find that that inner motivation to take advantage of all the programs that was available while I was in prison, to get the help that I so desperately needed. Because I wanted to be the man that my daughter could look up to and be proud of. So I took advantage of all the programs, the drug treatment program, the domestic violence program, the healing trauma program, all the support groups, NA, AA, all the different recovery support groups and programs that was available while I was in prison. I had to take advantage of because most times prison is a very restrictive environment and they don't necessarily care if you're doing something or not. A lot of people just at that time watching Jerry Springer or just, um, really not utilizing their time wisely. And I was one of those people, in previous bids. But my last bid, I had to really make some necessary changes, and my daughter was that source of inspiration. And once I got into the drug treatment program, which was a 4 month program, and it was in a separate unit inside the prison, and they ran it like a drug treatment program, Monday through Friday, from 8 to like 4 o'clock. We had to do groups, we had to do trainings and different things that kept us busy, like a drug treatment program within the community. And after that, 4 month program, they hired me to be a peer mentor, which
Mm.
was helping other, people that was incarcerated with me, other inmates, to help them with their addiction because there was a lot of drugs in prison as well too.
Right.
So it was easily to get high as long as you have what we call the commissary food, because we use the commissary of food as money or currency in prison. So long as you had enough commissary on your books, you was able to buy whatever drug that you want. So therefore, it was great to have peer mentors there to really help us to navigate through the prison system without using, without, getting a ticket, without getting into trouble, because it is a very violent place as well too, where a lot of men are wearing their masks because they can't show their true emotions. So they got to put on this bravado, so to speak, to really, not show their insecurities or weakness or any other type of emotional vulnerability. So just having that peer mentor there to support us because the counselors went home at 4 o'clock, but we were
Right.
there all the time dealing with the negativities from the CO, other inmates, and the risk of using drugs, and having that peer mentor there just to talk to, just to connect with, was so powerful, and having the peer mentors running groups, having 12-step groups there, it was just very a powerful experience to have, and having these different mind body practices. I'd never, even fathom learning yoga while in prison,
Sure.
or sound healing or meditation or these different holistic practices. But once I was able to get out of my own way and incorporate these experiences for myself, it just really produced profound effects in my life. And it really helped me to shift the way I see myself, the world, and the people in it.
Can I ask how was sound healing presented? Was it as a group setting and somebody would come in and play for you, or what was that experience like?
for me, for me, sound healing was I learned meditation, and I sat, because they did like group sessions, they did like 8 weeks, one group a week, where I learned meditation, where I just was sitting with myself, focusing on my breath, in a group setting, and that was very profound and powerful. But in the beginning stages, I was very distracted,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and I was always focusing on something else, easily, then I'll bring myself back, into my body, back into my breath, which was that in itself was the practice, I guess, But then once I started listening to different sounds and music with my headphones, a little like a Walkman we had while in prison, I was able to listen to different sounds. And there was a particular stations that I listened to. One of them was called Echoes, and it's a syndicated broadcast. And they played different soundscapes, different music from amazing sound healers and different other
Mm.
practitioners of sound and musicians. And I started meditating with that sound and music. And it got to the point where I wasn't in prison anymore.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I just kind of like transcend. But in the beginning, it was that anchor to keep me into the present moment, whereas oftentimes just sitting in silence or just focusing on my breath, my mind wanders so many different places. But having that sound to be that anchor to keep me present, and then once I kind of went from that, that conscious state of beta, that awakened state, down to that alpha, that theta state, I was able to transcend, that prison walls that I was in, and really go to another place. And it just was a powerful experience, really incorporating sound into my meditation practice. And to me, that was my first show, initial experience with sound healing, because I believe that was the sounds that I was listening
Yeah.
to.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it was on the headphones, it was a very profound experience. It's very transformative, and very healing, and allowed me to just really shift um, a lot within my heart and really connect to those emotions that I suppressed for a very long time, and allow it to come to the surface in order to be healed. Because I believe it's so important for us to feel before we heal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, you're describing truly your own self-healing through this
Mm,
process, and what's amazing is that through going through that yourself, your own self-healing and experiencing, it then turns into what you do now is helping other people that have uh, been through similar, overcoming traumas and addictions.
yeah.
And I'm just curious, how did that, once you got out, what
Hmm.
was kind of the first? It sounds, just from reading your bio, what a list of communities that you've now helped. So what was kind of the first thing that you did as soon as you were able to once you got out?
I was excited, to just really live this new life,
Mm-hmm.
by being a peer mentor. I, had a desire to help other people that's going through addictions or making that transition back to the community from prison. But I was also nervous too, because this was my first time ever living a life without the use of alcohol and other drugs. And I have four older brothers, three of us, three of them, they used, they smoked, they drank, and they used drugs, and that was our way of connecting with one another, if that makes sense. That's how we
Yeah.
bonded.
Mm-hmm.
We bonded by drinking or smoking a blunt or some
Mm-hmm.
weed or doing some coke. That's how we connected to one another,
Mm-hmm.
and not having that bond, so to speak, or that glue, so to speak, to kind of like connect us all together. Because even though addiction brought me down some very dark paths, but there's some times that I enjoyed, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the way I related with my family and a lot of my friends as well too, it was all gonna have to change, because it might sound cliche, but people, places, and things I really had to change in order to live a life without the use of alcohol and other drugs. So I was excited, but I was also anxious as well too, and very nervous. And once I was released from prison, and having this new way of looking at life, and my different way of experiencing life, and having tools to deal with my anxiety, to deal with my depression, to deal with all these intense raw human emotions that I experienced for a very long time, and where I used drugs to cope with it. I have different tools, and my mother of my daughter, um, she took me to a live sound healing session. There's a place in Connecticut called the Conduit
Mm-hmm.
Center, and it's a strictly sound healing, sound meditation space.
Mm-hmm.
And once I experienced live the sounds of the gong, the different metal bowls from the Himalayas, the ocean drum, just the crystal singing bowls, and all these different holistic healing tools. I just automatically fell in love with the
Mm.
experience, because it just took me to a place where I felt a sense of oneness, to all that is, that sense of connectiveness to all that is. And the one word that I can describe the feeling that I had with that experience with sound healing, my first live experience with sound healing, was love.
Mm-hmm.
It was that
Mm-hmm.
unconditional agape love that I was missing for a very long time. That I was like trying to fill that emptiness or that void with alcohol, with drugs, with sex, the gambling, all these different things. I was trying to fill that. that try to fill that hole that was missing within me for a very long time. And once I experienced the liveness of the sounds and the vibrations and frequencies from these different healing tools, it's just that sense of love, that connectiveness to a divine source, a divine power that was so powerful. And I felt like it was a reunion, so to speak, a reconnecting to the true essence of who I truly am. And it was just a very powerful experience. And I loved the experience when I was in prison, with the sound, the headphones. But once I was able to experience it live, I just automatically fell in love. Then I had to, do my own research. And I was doing meditation, but once meditation uh, with sound, once I incorporate sound into my practice, it just was a whole different ball game for me, where I was able to, learn about sound healing, go to different schools and trainings, and really dive deep into the practice, into the science of healing with sound. And it just was a powerful tool that I was able to utilize to help me to deal with the stresses, deal with the transformation that I was making in my life. And once I was able to incorporate into my life and really utilize it in a way that was effective to me, to not resort back to drinking or doing cocaine or heroin or prescription opiates, where I was able to deal with, life on life terms with different ways of dealing with it, such as these holistic practices and holistic therapies that I learned while in prison. And, it was, um, a long journey for me,
Mm-hmm.
whereas especially in the beginning stages of my early recovery. But I had tools, I had resources, had a loving support from my family and people that forgave me for the poor choices I made in my life, and or the so-called poor choices I made in my life, and the things that I've done that caused harm to many people. Um, Once they started seeing me making, um, doing the next right thing, so to speak, people started coming into my life and really being that aid and support, which I believe we need in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really took that experience of finding that love, what that true feeling of love
Mm,
and that sense of awe that you experienced at that in-person sound meditation to really know that there was no turning back after that. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, you explained several ways, having the support, but how do you sustain your recovery? What are some aspects of that in your own practice?
In my own practice, like support is huge, whether it's professional support from, I'm a therapist. I have a therapist of my own that I talk to twice a month, that helps me to deal with the trauma and the pain that I experienced in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have a loving partner, a girlfriend. She's there for me and she really supports me. My daughter, the relationship is great with my daughter now. My father, he's still alive. He's been a rock for me
Mm-hmm.
for a very long time, since day one. So I'm grateful for him as well too. And I had to learn to love a lot of people, including family members and friends. I had to learn to love them from a distance. And so I had to, develop new relationships with people in my life, and having issues with trust, because people that I've known for 20 years, even though it was a toxic relationship, I trusted that connection and that bond that we had,
Yeah.
So therefore, meeting new people and confiding in people and learning to trust people, I had to learn that, and it was very scary to do that,
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, having that support system I believe is so important. So having those professional supports, those natural supports from my loved ones, and even community supports, like the 12-step community, the holistic community. We have a thriving holistic community here in Connecticut, and I'm able to just really tap into different classes. I started doing a lot of yoga when I first got out of prison, and then I recently got into more of qigong.
Mm-hmm.
I love spending quality time in nature. Music has been my therapist for a very, very long time because there's always a song, a melody, a beat that can connect to any raw human emotion that I'm experiencing in my life, whether it's sadness, grief, despair, or is it love and joy and happiness, and any other emotion in between. The music has a way of just a profound way of really just connecting to any of those raw human emotions and allow me to process them in a very healthy and therapeutic way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so powerful how sad music, when you're feeling sad, can make you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the power, the transformative powers of sound. So sound always been there for me. Um, for a very long time. I think that's why I connected so much with sound and sound healing because I was a DJ back in the late 80s, early 90s. And music, yeah, music was I always had this connection and love affair with music, and that's been a very integral part of my healing journey as well. And just having that support is huge. And really just doing the inner work. It's so important that I do the inner work on a consistent basis. I
Mm.
started that inner work process while in prison, in the drug treatment program and the counseling and the yoga and the meditation and the sound healing. So I was able to look at that darkness or that pain. I didn't realize that at the root of my addiction was the trauma. It was
Right.
the emotional um, pain that I was able to express in a healthy way. And the only emotion I was able to express in a very toxic way was anger.
Mm.
And once that anger was filled with alcohol and other drugs, that anger easily turned into rage and
Mm-hmm.
got me into a lot of trouble. And underneath that anger, I realized there was a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity, a lot of doubt, a lot of poor self-esteem. And as a man growing up in America, we're taught to suppress those emotions. But today I learned how to feel those emotions, to express those emotions in a very healthy way, and get better results to do that. And that's all part of the inner work that I'm still on that journey that really helped me to do that. And also putting together goals. Once I got out of prison, that was my first real desire to set goals, realistic, healthy goals for myself, and achieve them. Go back to school because I ended up, dropping out of school when I was 17 years old. I was able to, go to school and not only get my GED, but go further my education um, into addiction recovery work.
Mm-hmm.
And to write a book and to just really be of service to people. And even being of service, it helps me to sustain my sobriety in my life and
Right.
and just really staying connected to my support system as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just really, doing that inner work, setting those goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, and really staying committed, and staying connected to my support system, and really relying on them and not allow my pride and my ego get in the way of seeking out support and help when I need it.
Right. Right. So just really a well-rounded um, ways for your own self-care, but helping other people just keeps you uplifted. And
Absolutely.
you made a really good point throughout this that I'm curious about. When you first were introduced to these types of things, you went out of your comfort zone. But it's
Hmm.
interesting that there is something about music that is more approachable
Right.
for all people. I mean, truly,
Hmm.
everybody feels the effects of music. And when it comes to overcoming these traumas, these kind of suppressed emotions that often revolve around addictions, why do you think it is that sound is so therapeutic and useful for addictions?
I think music and sound is it's like a universal language, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really able to connect people from all walks of life. Another practice that really helped me to sustain my sobriety is a static dance. And when I go to a static dance, we listen to the different music and sounds and how different people from all walks of life, we come together in that space before COVID anyway. We come together in this space and we just like not worrying about skin color, not worrying about our gender or sexual preference. We come and just really connect to the music, connect with the sounds and the vibrations, and how healing it is with just with the movement in itself. It helps to release a lot of that trauma that's in our bodies. But listening to the music, it helps us to take us to another different place, and it unifies us. It connects us from people from all walks of life. So I believe that music is that unifier for us. You know, it has a way of connecting people from all walks of life, regardless of the differences that we may have physically, that we can see. A certain song can really just bring out the similarities that we have
Mm-hmm.
together. You know, so music is so powerful. And I love when I do sound healing sessions, whether it's a group session or individual session. I love bringing it to different people from all walks of life. You know, particularly in my community, in communities of color, where there's a lot of stigma, you know, associated with a whole bunch of things, you know, and there's a lot of misconceptions as well to holistic therapies such as, you know, sound healing and yoga and the different types of practices. So people are more skeptical to experiencing it.
Right.
And what really helps me to help people to bring the walls down is when I share my story, how sound's been so beneficial to me in my life. But once they actually experience the sound, and I brought this into prisons, I brought this into colleges and universities, I brought this into you know, different cities here in Connecticut and different other places around the country as well too, and seeing how people's attitude change about sound healing and sound therapy. And the most profound one was when I went to prison. I was working with a bunch of no, they're teenagers, but it was a prison for juveniles. And you know, when I first went in there, when I bought the crystal bowls and the gongs, and I'm surprised that the Department of Correction allowed me to bring these instruments in. First of all, but I got approved because they really understand the power of music therapy or sound therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I got approved to let this in and to really offer a sound healing um, session, a part of the Smart Recovery program they have in the Addiction Services program. And so I share my story and experiences. And when they seen the crystal bowls, they're like, you know, what the hell is that? What's going on? You know, you just hear the snickers and the laugh and
Mm-hmm.
the joking around. And, you know, when I got into my story and after they experienced it, they were like, yo, oh my God, the Miss Counselor, you know, can he come back again next week? You know, the sounds, I've never been so relaxed in my life. You know, oh my God, how you do that? You know,
Right.
then they wanted to actually do it for themselves. You know, they took turns, you know, and where they was actually playing the crystal bowls with the mallet, and how I taught them how to use the metal,
That's
you
cool.
know, bowls that I have from Paul. And, you know, it was just a cool experience, and just to see that. And most of the people, besides one person, was a black male, you know, so therefore, you know, just kind of like talking about taking away those misconceptions that we may have about these practices and really incorporating into it. You know, it's part of my mission as well too. So I'm putting that face and voice into sound healing and sound therapy, because you know, oftentimes we don't see too many black sound therapists or sound healers doing these things. You know, and that's why I'm so visible and with marketing and promotion, and really going to different communities, you know, all across the country, to really show that, okay, you know, this is not just for, well, let me put it this way, anybody could benefit from
Right.
the holistic and transformative powers of sound, you know, and how we do already have that connection with sound and music, which I believe music is organized sound. You know, we already have that connection to it. So therefore, okay, you know, and how sound could put us into a calm, relaxed state, how it can energize us if we need that as well too, and help us to relieve a lot of stress that's in our bodies, you know, because there's a saying, a lot of our issues live in our tissues. So a lot of the trauma that we suppress in our bodies, those uncomfortable emotions that we suppress, it's in our bodies, it's in our muscles, it's in our tissues. Our cells have memory, and our body keeps score of all the experiences that we go through in our lives. And what I love about the vibrations and frequency um, and sound from the different healing tools that I utilize, it penetrates to the cellular level and helps to release a lot of that stuck emotions or the stagnant energies that's in our bodies, or the trauma that's in our bodies, and it's released, you know. And I've done many sound healing sessions, and you know, have people like like bawling, crying their eyes out. And that's a beautiful way that the trauma and those emotions could come out of our bodies in the form of tears. People get different tingling sensations in certain parts of the body, certain tremors, they come out. To me, that's that energy moving, is ready to be moved. Many people talk about the different colors and visions and thoughts that come to their conscious awareness they haven't thought about in a very long time. So all that is just that suppressed emotions or that suppressed trauma that's in our body that's trying to be released. And and people experiencing sound healing sessions, they get to witness that for themselves. And I didn't even mention about the spiritual,
Hmm. Right.
the spiritual aspects of sound therapy and sound healing, how it can really connect us to a sense of higher power and connect us to the true essence of who we are.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Yeah, that was a really great description of the different kind of healing responses people can have, and that
Mm,
these releases, these ways to kind of let go of what we've been holding on to are
yes.
so beneficial. Yeah. And you also mentioned a couple things. First of all, that experience that when you brought the bulls and all that into the prison is,
Mm-hmm.
and them getting to participate, I think there's just such empowerment that you were providing
Mm.
there, that they were able to also participate and not just receive. I think that's really important as well.
That's so true, Natalie.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I am curious, especially during these times this year where, people were actually being told to isolate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I would wonder that, kind of these addictions, these traumas, gosh, it's just more challenging and more difficult. I don't know if you're seeing that, or
Oh, yes.
are there things you can suggest, to help people build strength when they aren't as close to people and connecting with other people.
Yeah, and the government is telling us to, physically distance ourselves,
Mhm.
which is, rightly so. But I do know that isolation and the stress that's coming up from the COVID, because not only it's a physical and mental health crisis that we're dealing with COVID, it's also an economic crisis as well too. Many people are losing their jobs, many people are losing their businesses, and just how that collateral damage happens when you lose their job. So everybody's feeling stress and tension, and people like myself that's in or seeking recovery, from alcohol and other drugs. Social isolation and chronic stress are major contributors to setbacks and relapses. So many people are just really feeling it at this time. Whereas addiction rate is high right now, overdose rates is high right now, suicide rate is high right now, domestic violence rate is high right now, child abuse rates is high right now, and all those statistics telling me that a lot of people dealing with a lot of intense emotions and don't have healthy outlets to release those emotions and traumas in their lives. And so what I've been sharing with people is, okay, we're taught to physically distance ourselves, and particularly in April and May when a lot of things were closed, where we had to rely on our virtual communities. And there's nothing like in-person community to me,
Mhm.
but the virtual communities, it really helped me throughout this process. Whereas the communities that built on social media, the communities and the events that we've been doing on Zoom and other virtual platforms, it gave me that sense of connectedness,
Mhm.
because I truly do believe that connection is the cure for feelings of isolation, loneliness, depression, and different other types of emotional distresses that we experience in our lives. And having the opportunity to connect virtually and just to kind of share what's going on in our lives, and to offer each other tools and resources to deal with the challenging times, that was very healing and therapeutic for me. Whereas a lot of the therapy sessions are they was able to make that transition to do therapy online,
Mm.
or virtually. So therefore, if a lot of emotions coming up for us, we can, if we have access to seek therapy, we have that access now. But
Mhm.
also just connecting to our friends, our loved ones, checking in on people, that's so healing in its way as well too. So having, and there's a whole bunch of meetings and different things that was going on that people move to the virtual
Mm-hmm.
platforms as well too. So that was very huge as well. And just really learning more about yourself because during the quarantine or just being kind of stuck at home, it was a very intense time, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it was an opportunity as well.
Right.
Because, I believe it's the Chinese proverb where, there's in every crisis, there's an opportunity. And even though we're dealing with a crisis situation with the pandemic, but it was also opportunity. And for me, it was opportunity to learn more about myself. Go on that journey of self-discovery. What do I like? What have I been putting off for a very long time? What I've been wanting to do, but I'm saying I don't have time to do it. And I picked up different hobbies while I was during this transition period, particularly during the late spring, summertime. I was able to learn a lot more about myself. And another thing that I seen during like that May June time was a lot of families, walking together. I've seen in certain families, we was able to go outside, families playing in parks and just riding their bikes together, and people getting, many people getting animals and
Mm-hmm.
to be of support, or therapy dogs, or any other type of pet that's therapeutic for them. To me that was beautiful. And one thing I know about the human spirit is we are resilient. We
Mm-hmm.
know how to bounce back from challenges and struggling situations. And I think about my body, how powerful our bodies are. How it's always looking to bring us back home, back into homeostasis, back into balance. And oftentimes when we get tipped up or stressed out or overwhelmed or off balance, you know, the resiliency of the human spirit, it could really bring us back into proper balance. And I was able to witness that from many people, just really figuring themselves out, trying new things, moving past their comfort zone, and just really connecting with each other in a very authentic and real way. And that was a very beautiful thing to witness and
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And I think just it's such an important time to invest in yourself, which I mean
Hmm.
is truly your story, since that massive change that you had, that realization is invest in myself, grow, learn, and then in turn that will help just so many people. And I'm curious, you're on so many boards of directors, you're in so many organizations and communities, helping people. What part of your work is most important right now? What do you really feel growing and expanding, and or something that you're just very curious about how it's going to manifest in the near future?
I think sitting on these boards and these organizations and in these prestigious positions, it's all good and all,
Mm-hmm.
but my heart is grassroots. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And to me, it's all about the people, and really bringing holistic healing and wellness to the communities, because we need that more than ever now,
Mm-hmm.
and in our culture, it's kind of designed to kind of like just, I don't know, just really focus on material things and having big home or cars or a lot of money in the bank, or look at me, this is me, look how good I look, but yet they're suffering in silence, So my job and my main goal is to really help people to take off their mask, come back together in community like my ancestors did, because we thrive in community, and it seemed like we lost that in a way. And how this COVID, was the opportunity for families to come back together again, to support one another, how people was so disconnected to each other, and had an opportunity to reconnect with themselves, reconnect with other people, and really support each other in a very authentic and real way. So my job, my role really is to really bring that authenticity back, and our connection back in a community sense, whether it's virtual or I've been doing a lot of outdoor community events as well too, and we practice all the guidelines that we need to follow here in Connecticut. But people often tell me they're missing that. They're missing that sense of connectiveness, and it's just how do I allow people to come together and just really connect with their emotions and feel supported. How do we put together a care plan for ourselves, and not only a self-care plan, but a community care plan as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
how do we take care of each other as a community, and how do we take care of ourselves as individuals as well too. And I believe they go together, hand in hand. So really kind of just like bring all that back. What I mean? Last night, I did a sound healing for a sisterhood um, sharing circle, which was a beautiful experience. We was all outside. We the chairs was distance apart. We had a fire going, and emotions came up. And I was honored um, to leave that circle. Where we were just able to just kind of like just check in with one another. How are we feeling? What are we grateful for? Where we at emotionally? What word to describe the emotion that we're at? And it could be any emotion. And how I use that opportunity to create a sacred and safe space for people to be vulnerable, people to share their emotions, and the support that came along with this sisterhood. How they was able to allow another person to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, just as they are. And how the tears came, how the laughter came, and how this the connectiveness of it came. That's what I'm talking about, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I believe that we need. And how music and sound and food could always, it has that power and potential to connect people.
Right.
And I'm really am all about that connection. And really, how do we connect first to ourselves? How do we connect to our hearts? How do we connect back to our bodies? Because we feel like we're so disconnected from our bodies as well as our hearts. And how do we connect with other people in a very authentic and real and healing way? So that's like the main work. And how we could do this for ourselves. We could do this within our communities, and this will be have a ripple effect in the places that we work at, in our workplace, um, in our families, in our homes, and just in other places that we thrive in community at. So it starts with us, and just really taking care of ourselves and doing the inner work we need to do in order to heal. But also, we can't do it alone, and that's where people and connection and community comes into play. And I just want to be that facilitator to really bring all that connection back to people, and using sound, music, and vibrations and frequencies to be that bridge or be that connector for us
Mm.
in this in this
Mm-hmm.
in this community, in my communities that I serve.
That, yeah, that's beautifully said. I mean, what's so interesting is obviously focusing on yourself first, but then it becomes contagious. If you're
Mm-hmm.
able to gather and do this in groups, which I'm so glad that you're able to outdoor and just making that
Mm-hmm.
work, that connection happens, and it just
Yeah.
brings in so much vibration and
Mm-hmm.
light, and just filters out into everybody's world, and everything that they're doing in their life. It just continues to grow and grow. So
Yes.
yeah, that was really beautifully put, and
Thank
I can
you.
tell that you are definitely holding space for people
Mm.
in your community, and that's just really beautiful. And
Thank
by
you,
the way,
Natalie.
congratulations! I believe I saw that you were just inducted into the CT Hall of Change this
Yes.
month. Can you tell me about
Yes.
what is that about?
It's such an honor, with to be inducted to the Connecticut Hall of Change, which it consists of 8 different people, which they call the Great Eight. That's been something that's first of its kind, but they plan to bring it out to all 50 states. And really how we honor and recognize people that's been in prison, and how they changed their life around and actually making um, great contributions to the communities as well too. And this is something that's in part with our organization's founder of Hang Time, which is Charlie Grady. He's a FBI agent, and he worked with a lot of people coming home from federal prisons, and he wanted to create space where we could honor people that's you know been to prison, have a desire to make some changes in their lives, and give back to their communities. And once they was able to really break the chains of recidivism and in and out of prison, and really connect and do the inner work, and really give back to the community, he wanted to honor them and recognize them and moralize them as well too. Whereas in the we have in Connecticut, we have the Newgate Prison Museum, and there's a hall dedicated to the Great Eight, for the Hall of Change. And whereas people go to listen to our videos, see our pictures, and they create a speaker bureau. Whereas we might be doing a lot of stuff online, virtually right now, but just really promoting hope, positivity for people that's coming home or even in prison, and maybe give them that light back, in their hearts, give them a sense of hope, just because they're in prison, that's, for majority of people that's incarcerated are coming home, over 95% of people. So therefore, just because, you've been incarcerated, or just because you're incarcerated now and you have, um, a release date and you're coming back into the community, there's ways that you can change your life, learn from your poor choices that you made, and just really be a contribution to our communities. And it's just an honor to be one of the 8 initiates
Mm.
into the Connecticut Hall of Change. And and it all started in prison.
Right.
And like I was saying, I I'm grateful for all those experiences, because it wasn't for those experiences, I wouldn't be the man that I am today.
Right.
And finding that sense of purpose, finding that sense of hope, it's just been just just so rewarding in its own way. And I
Mm.
often call prison divine intervention,
Mm-hmm.
because I was taken out of my element, so to speak. And if I would have stayed in my element, I would have probably hurt myself or ended my life, or something would have happened that I've been in jail for a very long time, or just something bad. But that divine intervention where it took me out of my element, put me into a place where I couldn't leave, but I had the opportunity to do the inner work I needed to do in order to heal. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity, to do the inner work that I needed
Mm-hmm.
to do, in order to heal. And, if it's okay, Natalie, I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to share a poem that I wrote while I was in the drug treatment program,
Absolutely. Yeah.
within prison. And by first learning meditation, then meditating with sound, practicing sound meditation, I was able to really go within and connect to those raw human emotions that I suppressed, and that trauma that I suppressed for a very long time, and allow it to bring it to the surface, to be integrated, to be processed, to be transmuted, and to be
Mm-hmm.
released and healed. And I found a powerful outlet to utilize, which was expressive arts, which was poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And by using that tool to express myself in a very healthy and authentic way, it's been very therapeutic for me, and it's very therapeutic for me to even recite the poem.
Mm.
And I'd love to share it with you and your audience today.
That'd be great.
And the name of this poem is called Eyes of a Silent Sun. Look into my eyes and tell me what you see. Is it a lost soul with no control, trying to be free? As I look into the mirror and stare into my eyes, I see all the anger and self hate, hypocrisy and lies. I see resentment, frustration, embarrassment, and pain. I see jail bars and fancy cars as I cruise down memory lane. I see the feelings I repressed, going back to childhood. I need to let go of those feelings. I would if I could. I see the hurt that I caused to the ones I love the most. I see my brother on his wedding day as we celebrate with a toast. I see the good and bad times that I experienced in my life, but it's so hard to let go of all that bitterness and strife. There's a sense of sadness when you look into my eyes, like the ones you see when a close relative dies. But this death is not physical, it has to do with the soul. It's that morbid feeling we get when our spiritual energy is low. It's like nothing matters anymore, like that day when I was fired, feeling depressed and weak. Can't sleep, but I'm so tired. I'm tired of all the pain, the hurt, and the rain from that cloud that keeps following me. Sometimes I think I'm insane. But when I look out the window and see the beauty of the lake, it reminds me of good times, like when I was 9 and things were fine. And with the sunrise, I can feel the presence of the Creator. When I look out my window, I see me in the beauty of nature. I'm a part of God's creation, nature, and humanity. The love and spirit that's in Jesus is also in me. So I learned to love myself and others just for who we are. And I learned all about this love looking out my window with jail bars. And for me, I learned about love in a very unusual place, behind bars. And by going within and utilizing meditation to be still and using sound to be that vehicle to really go within, I was able to connect to the shame and guilt that often keep people like myself in active addiction in that very vicious cycle of addiction. But I was able to move past that shame and guilt and connect to the true essence of who I am. And I believe the true essence that you and all the people that's listening today are. The essence I'm talking about is the unconditional agape love. I believe love is more than just the human emotion or emotion. I believe love is a vibration, it's a frequency, and it's our natural state of being. So once I was able to shift my mentality, the way from a victim mentality, oh, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a convicted felon, I'm a high school dropout, to a more a victorious or empowered mentality that I'm a person that's in recovery from alcohol and other drugs. And if I want to get metaphysical, I know that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
That really helped me to shift the way I see myself, the world, and the people in it. Because the same divine love and essence that created the sun, the moon, the stars, and all the beauty of nature created me, created each and every one of you. Then from that perspective, it just allowed me just to see things in a whole new, different, bright light. And I owe this all by going within with meditation and really helping me to stay anchored and centered and grounded with sound. And once I was able to experience that sound, my first experience, and when I felt that sense of unconditional agape love, is just kind of like just was confirmation for me. This is the direction I need to go. This is what I need to share and introduce to people that might have the same misconception that I had. That make you think maybe it's woo woo or
Mm-hmm.
not for them or just some type of whatever. And it could be those experiences,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanna like just kind of like ground it, and to allow people to, okay, this you could benefit from this,
Right.
mind, body, emotions, spirit. You could benefit from this, and allow people to make that step up Jacob's ladder, so to speak, on their own, but utilizing that tool of sound to help them to be that facilitator for them on their evolutionary process. And it's just been a beautiful journey, just
Mm-hmm.
sharing sound, sharing music, sharing, holding space with one another, with each other, and just having the opportunity to do that, even in the midst of the COVID
Mm-hmm.
19, even in the midst of the racial tensions that we experience in our lives as well too, which it's very traumatizing to see black and brown bodies being murdered, being killed, and I'm so grateful that I have these tools in my life, to help me to deal with that trauma, the vicarious trauma of seeing another person being murdered, of seeing George Floyd being murdered on social media like that.
Mm-hmm.
It just really hurt me to the core. It brought up so much raw human emotions such as grief, sadness, anger, fury, all these intense emotions. And after watching that video, I literally had to take my socks and shoes off and go outside in nature and truly root
Mm-hmm.
and ground myself. Then after a few minutes, I went into the house and grabbed my singing bowl and I started playing. I did a live sound healing session on Facebook just to, talk a little bit about, my process, what's going on, how I'm feeling. I was able to share my heart and offer some sound. And that really helped me to bring me back into balance.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize how triggering watching that video, seeing Aubrey, seeing George be murdered and killed like that, until the next day where I woke up with a very heavy heart and I had to put on some music. 'Cause like I said, music is my therapist, and I put on some Public Enemy, "Welcome to the Terror Dome,"
Mm-hmm.
80s hip hop band, not excuse me, 80s 90s hip hop band, and it allowed me to really process those emotions and allow me to release that anger, that frustration, that trauma in the form of tears, where I was able to like just release that in the tears, and that allowed me to feel much better. And I'm so grateful for the tools I have in my life, the holistic practices, sound healing, qigong, being out in nature, meditation. And I'm so grateful for the support that I have in my life too, that I could call and reach out and talk to when I'm feeling those raw, intense human
Mm.
emotions, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And all started with my process of doing the inner work while I was in prison. And I'm so grateful for that.
Wow.
Very grateful.
It really is inspiring if you because you express it as an opportunity, right?
Hmm.
These were challenges, these were experiences, but an opportunity which now, through your journey, you can help others navigate their
Yes.
journey and just to
Yes.
really look at it that way. Yeah.
Yes,
Mm.
yes, it
Mhm.
helps me to really look at it that way, but not to escape the emotion or escape the intensity. I need to validate my raw human emotions wherever it may be. So I learned to sit with my emotion instead of reaching for something outside of myself,
Mhm.
such as alcohol and other drugs, to numb that pain, to escape that pain. I learned to sit with it, process it in a healthy way, then figure out, okay, what's this emotion? This intense emotion teaching me? What
Mm.
wisdom that I could find in these raw human emotions that I could learn from and grow from? And that process allows me to, really look at the world, myself, and others in a different light, and able to respond instead of emotionally reacting.
Right.
Because when I tend to emotionally react to situations, I say things and I do things that I
Mm.
later regret.
Mhm.
So I'm more mindful of that today.
Yeah. Well, Kelvin, thank you so much, truly, for being so open and passionate and warm, and for all the people you're helping and that you will help, and
Mm.
for all the people that will be inspired by this, that will in turn help other people. I just am so thankful for you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for this opportunity to share. Thank you for the great work that you're doing as well
Mm.
too, and just having a platform and being that voice,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
getting this, if information and frequency out to all that's open to listen. We need that
Right.
more than ever right now. So thank you for all the work and service that you offer to the world.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so
Yes,
much for your time. You're doing
thank you
awesome
so much.
work, and if we
Thank
ever
you.
meet in person, I'll give you a big hug. And
I love
yeah,
that. You
sounds
come to
good.
East Coast, let me know.
Sounds good. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you
Okay.
take care.
All right. Yep. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sounds Heal Podcast, sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa. You can keep up to date with what's coming up next at soundshealstudio.com. Check things out on Facebook at Sounds Heal Studio, and you can listen to all previous podcasts as well as music meditations on the YouTube channel at Sounds Heal Studio. Be well and stay tuned.